The debate still rages on as to whether Luke Skywalker was in character or not as compared with his previous incarnations on screen. While I find this argument to be fascinating, yet entirely subjective, the real question should be, what is it we were given and what does it mean? For me, the answer is pretty simple. The Last Jedi went beyond the hero's journey or monomyth to give us Luke the prodigal hero, to finally show us as fans once and for all that Luke Skywalker is more than just the Last Jedi. He is a human with faults, and given his circumstances, he still ends up as the triumphant hero, returning to save those he loves in their most desperate hour. So, what is the prodigal hero? Well, here's a quick explanation from the world's most trusted source of information, Wikipedia. It involves a character in the lap of luxury, when suddenly he is forced to run away from home, usually due to murdering someone on accident. The character exiles himself and goes to live a carefree life without much responsibility. That is, however, until their past comes back to bite them in the butt and they are forced to return to their old home and save the day, usually by saving his people from either their evil rulers or a new evil that has come in his absence. For many, I'm sure that this sounds extremely resonant with Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, but let's dive into some of what was said in this explanation and how it pertains to Luke in his latest portrayal on screen and throughout the sequel trilogy. And again, I understand this is a Wikipedia definition, so here we go. As we know, Luke Skywalker has vanished in the beginning of The Force Awakens, with the First Order having risen in his absence. Before this exile, you could say that this quote-unquote lap of luxury was Luke's status in the galaxy as the legend that triumphed over the greatest evil the galaxy had ever met. And then, after the creation of his new Jedi Academy, his nephew, Ben Solo, leads to its destruction. And all of this due to Luke having a momentary lapse in judgment, thinking he could strike down his nephew to end the darkness he would bring. But instead, this was the act that galvanized Ben's turn. As Ben sees Luke gazing upon him with his green lightsaber, he summons his own blade to defend himself. He causes the hut to crash down around Luke and goes on a killing spree. Now, it's wild to me that this moment unleashes all of Ben's darkness, and as I have said in some of my other videos, it's very tragic. In my opinion, the third version of the vision we are given on screen is actually what happened in the hut. It seems pretty cut and dry that Luke quickly realized the hubris of igniting his blade, but it was too late. Luke, realizing that he, the man who saved Anakin Skywalker, sparked another cycle of darkness in the galaxy, decides that the galaxy is better off without him, believing that his own legend got the best of him. And he failed in every way possible to those he loved and those who put their trust in him. After, I assume, years of exile, Luke's past catches up to him in the form of Rey. Luke has no knowledge of the destruction left in his wake, and Rey is here to remind him to be the Jedi he once was. As you can see, all of this lines right up with the story beats of the prodigal hero. And sure, I could completely understand people in the comment sections debating why Luke was portrayed this way, but I think it's missing the entire point of this trilogy and his purpose. Luke Skywalker already had his hero's journey in the original trilogy. You could even argue Luke completed the hero's journey in the first Star Wars film, since it's a self-contained film in my opinion. But Luke is without a doubt troubled by his experiences throughout the original trilogy. Luke blows up the Death Star, killing millions of people. Luke finds out his father is Darth Vader, and his hand is cut off. Luke realizes Obi-Wan Kenobi lied to him. Luke almost kills his own father in a fit of rage after the Emperor stokes his anger. His father dies before his eyes right after turning back to the light. Luke also sees Obi-Wan and Yoda die before his eyes as well. And Luke also made out with his sister. And finally, Luke sees all the death and destruction caused by Ben Solo as the result of his altercation in the hut. Luke has PTSD, depression, anxiety, you name it. And he is withdrawn from society because he firmly believes the galaxy is better off without him. But he is wrong. The story suggests this to us rather blatantly, with Yoda giving Luke one more push back into the fight to set things straight and put the galaxy on the path toward light. The final lesson Luke gets from Yoda was powerful. Luke's failure with Ben is just as important as his successes. Luke lost Ben, but for there to be balance, he must not lose Rey. who is the counterpoint to Ben's darkness. In Luke's final act in The Last Jedi, he closes the arc of his prodigal hero storyline, finally coming face to face with the evil that rose in his absence. In this act, he not only saves the Resistance, giving them enough time to flee the situation, but he makes amends with his past by talking with his sister Leia. Luke has come to accept responsibility for his actions and lack thereof, and finally atone for what has happened in his wake. Even more important is the way Luke goes about his final act. Luke projects his essence light years across the galaxy. This makes it impossible for him to harm Ben in any way, or for Ben to even harm him in any way. Essentially, it allows Ben to let out some rage on his uncle, while ultimately buying the Resistance some time. And as the first act of The Last Jedi set up, projecting oneself using the Force across great distances is deadly. Luke does die, but to the people who saw what happened on Crate, he merely disappears. This use of the Force, in my opinion, is so powerful because it not only disturbs Ben to a degree as he whimpers in realization that he has been fighting a ghost from his past, but no one can say that the First Order killed Luke. As far as the galaxy is concerned, Luke Skywalker just played the First Order hard and reignited hope again in the galaxy, being oppressed by the rising First Order, and then poof, disappeared. So I'm curious as to what you think about what the prodigal hero means in Star Wars, and if you align on my thinking of what Rian Johnson and Lucasfilm was kind of going for with the portrayal of Luke Skywalker in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. For me, this is a pretty solid, obvious explanation for what was going on in the sequel trilogy. So yeah, I would say that Luke is the prodigal hero in the case of the sequel trilogy, and I find it very fascinating. So I hope you guys have all enjoyed my little deep dive into the prodigal hero in The Last Jedi, as well as Luke Skywalker. And as always, this is the AdAd Chat, and I'm signing off.